Hello, everyone, and welcome to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you tuned in. And tonight we're talking about someone very special. We're remembering the life of Elder Alvin M. Kibble. Coming up next. Once again, welcome back to the UpSet podcast. We're so happy that you joined us this Sunday evening. And when I say we're, I never like to show up alone. I have some of the crew here with me. What's up, everybody?
Hey,
Happy Sunday.
Hey,
Sunday.
Real
Sunday.
Yes, we're live.
Real Sunday.
Live. I know, right? Thank you, everybody. Come in and say good evening. Let us know where you're watching us from. We always love to say hello. I see Rochelle has already offered her good afternoon. So, hi. Yes, we have had a great Sunday so far. Well, I'll speak for myself. But thanks for tuning in. Well, I'm just gonna jump right in. I know since we last came together, we had someone in our panel who was installed into a new church or something like that. I heard.
Pat? Who was that?
I know, right?
Yeah. Actually, it's wonderful. I mean, it so far I've been there for 2 weeks, and it's different. It's different from 10 years ago. So already had meetings, and it's Zoom. Usually, you're driving down to the church or something of that nature. So there's a lot of changes in it, but I'm happy about it. Really happy about it. It's the Glenridge Church in District Heights, Maryland.
Great, awesome.
Welcome back to the field.
Yeah. We in.
That's awesome. See more people coming in. Hi, Monte Cristo, and hello, Grady. Hi, Carmen. Thanks for tuning in.
Yep.
Glad you guys are watching. So what else? I know there's a lot that's going on in the news. Some of it
I mean, from the fires in Hawaii to the storm. Is it Hurricane Hillary in California?
Hurricane California.
Hitting them right now.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on.
Devastation. And I, as someone who's been to Hawaii, I mean, I love Hawaii. And it has like a special place in my heart because when I went there, it was just such an enchanting place. I mean, I think my husband and I cried literal tears the day we had to leave because it was just so beautiful. The people were lovely. The scenery was lovely. And so as soon as I heard about what was happening there, I'm like, no, it's like, someone ruining utopia, But we heard today that there are like hundreds of bodies that are unidentified. And I just think about the devastation, what people are experiencing right now, not knowing where loved ones are, not having any place to live, any place to go, so much destruction. It's kind of unsettling.
Some of the testimonies I've heard that some people literally had minutes to leave their home. Minutes. I mean, it's the fires traveled so fast. When you look at some of the footage, it's horrific.
Yeah.
It really is horrific.
Was that a true picture of that Seventh Adventist church that didn't burn?
Yeah, I saw a video of that. They were saying they were showing all of the devastation around the church, and the church was still standing. And I mean,
really?
Hmm.
I
hate to think that someone would doctor that, but yeah, I saw a video.
Yeah, I said the same thing. There's so many
Photoshop.
Well, so many
like
artificial intelligence stuff out there now. It's like, did it really happen? Is it really true? But if that should be the case, of course, God protected church.
But they still desperately need our prayers.
Yep.
It's sometimes we see these things as news flashes and forget that people are living this in the moment.
Right.
Yeah. They were talking about the challenge of transitioning kids back to school in the midst of this devastation is difficult.
Absolutely. And speaking of transitioning kids back to school, We know that most of our schools within Allegheny East open tomorrow.
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 Yes, so that's also a matter of prayer. Please keep all of our schools. We have been focusing on education this month. We're taking a little break tonight just to honor someone special to our conference. But we definitely still solicit your prayers for all of our schools, our 11 schools. And, there's a lot we don't know that happens day in and day out with our schools, and a lot of prayers needed. So we continue to ask you to support them as much as you can. Hey,
And I might add also that at the media center had the task of giving AV support to the curriculum committee of our school system, and being with them all day. I'll tell you, I have already had a great appreciation for educators, but I have a greater appreciation for our educators. The amount of information they had to absorb just in that one day.
Yeah.
It was really, in my opinion, it was really 3 days worth of information, and they truncated it into one day. And I was just blown away as at the end of the day, I said to Albert, I said, we don't pay our folk enough.
Nope.
These educators, especially the principals and those that are principal and teacher.
And teachers.
Yep.
Teachers, yeah.
That's right.
That is an incredible amount of pressure and amount of work. So, support the educators of your school.
That's right.
Because they really need it. It's a very stressful job, and they have a lot to do. And they are some of the best educators on the planet. So
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I agree with.
Salute to all of them. Yeah. All right, guys. So once again, thank you to everyone who's tuned in. We're seeing your greetings in the chat.
Bishop Wade from South Carolina.
Yeah.
I see him.
Yeah, good to see you there.
I see him.
Good to see you. And yes, we too are looking forward to a blessed podcast tonight. And we thank you for taking the time to join us. Yes. Someone said, "Love on our Christian educators every opportunity." That's right.
That's some sound counsel from Mr. Goodman.
Yeah.
Love on them.
So we're getting some information that's the Maria Lanakaila Catholic Church was the church that didn't.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to leave that alone. Not going to comment.
Yeah.
Somebody going to come on and say something crazy, but
some heavenly fire extinguishers.
There's sheep in other fold.
We probably should leave it alone.
Yeah, we're going to leave that alone. But thank you for the factual information.
Yes.
That was shared.
Yes.
And we're still keeping Maui and everyone surrounding areas in our prayers. All right, guys. Well, I'm taking a breath because, we love talking about the fun stuff on the podcast and, some unconventional topics and things of that nature. But, there comes a time when we tackle some somber issues or things that our conference experiences. And, last Saturday, not this past, but prior Saturday, I was on vacation. I was, enjoying my family and Jamaica, and I don't know what. I think I had gone to get dressed, came back, and I had a missed call from Dr. Robinson, and I didn't even know what it was. I just knew it wasn't good news. Dr. Robinson doesn't call me on a Saturday morning with good news. So when I got the message about Elder Kibble passing, I just, you take a moment and you just, you have that breath of, and because things hit differently when you know of someone than when you know the person, and you immediately go back to maybe your last interaction with them or just what they've meant to you personally, and to just know that that person is no longer, in the land of the living. It hits different. But we do know that Elder Kibble was our former president of Allegheny East Conference. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity to work with him when he was in that role, but I did have several opportunities after that fact. But anyway, tonight we just wanted to take some time to talk about him, to remember him, share some of our personal experiences, and we have invited a couple of other individuals who had close relationships with him as well to also share in this. And we're inviting all of you who are in our listening audience, viewing audience, to share some of your remembrances in the chat, and we'll read them out loud. I think it kind of helps. We're a family, and it kind of helps when we come together and share what someone's life has meant to all of us. And so now we're going to bring on a couple of guests right now. First, we have Pastor Keith Goodman.
Hello.
Welcome, welcome, welcome.
West.
Greetings from Allegheny West.
Hey. And we also have Pastor Al Johnson right here from
Hey,
AEC.
good evening, everybody.
Hey.
Welcome.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So I guess I started off by sharing, that initial reaction from hearing that he passed. Any of you kind of have, what was that initial thought when you heard the news, or how did you hear it?
Well, I think I heard it almost like everyone else, and it was a gut punch, for me. I have enough stories to fill the whole podcast in terms of me working with him as president and executive secretary and on the board of Breath of Life and so forth and so on. So much to share. But on my side of the fence, highly respected. Thought he was one of the most professional presidents that Allegheny's ever had. So I have a lot of stories, so I'll let someone else speak.
We'll get to some of them. Keith, you were going to say something.
Oh no, I was deferring to whoever wanted to go first, but when the news hit me, it was yet another one of the pastors that has meant so much to me that's now resting. Randy Stafford was one.
Right.
And so Alvin Kibble is kind of in that same category for me. They've known me from the very beginning and just took a special interest. And so it touches you in a different kind of way when ministers who I considered great and who took the time to come close to mentor when they pass on, it hits you differently, even though you have the hope of the resurrection and all of that.
Right.
But Elder Kibble was one of those people who I could text him anytime, and he would either say, "Hey, I'm getting off a plane. I'll call you later," or whatever. And so I knew that he was beginning to fail because I had sent him a text message that he didn't respond to. And so I reached out to Aunt Jewel, and she said, "Keith, I guess you didn't hear that he was having a health challenge." So I was aware that he was failing, and I had spoken with Elder Joseph McCoy about it as well. So I was aware that he wasn't doing well, but I didn't expect him to pass when he did.
Yeah.
Right. I got it.
Yeah, I found out that Sabbath morning, about somewhere in the early 6 o'clock hour. Got a text message from a friend, and you're going through. At least for me, I'm going through my Sabbath morning pregame thing, getting, knew what I was going to preach that day, and just still praying. And when the news hit, it just literally everything stopped. Stopped for me, and ended up texting other family members and a couple friends. Keith being one of them.
Hey, you let me know.
Yeah. And it just kind of one of those things just made you say, whoa, and just it literally stopped. I literally for the next, I'd say hour and a half, 2 hours, it was just like, wow, just kind of stopped you in your tracks.
Absolutely. I did want to, we all had some, memory of him, or we knew him, but just for our audience who may not know whom we're talking about, I just wanted to give a little bit of background on him. Of course, we're not going to go through his whole bio, but I'm actually going to start with the love of his life, Jewel Kibble, formerly Jewel Peck. They were married in 1971, and anyone who knows Elder Kibble knows that he loved his wife. And I do have a couple of pictures of them because they were just kind of just a couple that made a statement when they came into a room, and he often.
Oh, I took that picture.
Did you take? Oh yeah, there's your name right there. You did.
That was outside the buoy where we used to have constituency sessions.
Oh, nice, nice. And we also know that in addition to loving his wife, he loved his children and his grandchildren. And I saw this picture. Now he was my friend on Facebook. I used to follow him all the time, and so I saw some of these pictures. His two sons and his grandson there, Santos and Jason. I'm not sure of his grandson's name, but he's very, very much a family man. Loved to be with his family. I remember there's actually a picture I have that I took at Oshkosh. He was with his grandson and just enjoying the time with him. And I said, "Oh, Kibble, let me just get a picture of you guys." And he took a pause and smiled, and there was that memory. But I love the fact that, because you hear a lot of leaders say that, being in leadership, you're always going, you're always doing. Sometimes family gets left behind, or, you're not able to dedicate as much time to them. But I always felt like I saw him giving a concerted effort to make sure family was first. And that was definitely one of the things I appreciated from my own observations of him with his wife and with his sons and grandchildren. I thought that was very beautiful. Now, do any of you know his children personally? I know I have.
So
Jason and Santo.
Yeah.
We grew up as pastors' kids in Allegheny East Conference.
Okay.
Those were. Santo was older than us, of course, but Jason was a running buddy of ours, and know him very well.
Okay. Nice. And we're, as we talk about praying for the family, we're talking specifically about his wife and his children and grandchildren, because of course this is fresh for us. It's still very fresh for them as well. Now, maybe I should do a little quiz. How many of you guys know where Elder Kibble went to college, undergrad?
AUC.
I believe it was AUC.
You're right. Atlantic Union College, which is no longer, I forgot the year it closed, but he attended or graduated from there in 1967. And then he did go on to the Great Andrews Theological Seminary in 1969. Now, who knows where he started his ministry, his pastoral ministry?
In the Allegheny East Conference?
Great.
Oh, you want to go more specific? Okay, got it.
No, but you're right. He did. I believe I read that his first church was in Jersey City, New Jersey, if I'm not mistaken. So, even though he served as our president at some point, he's actually started his ministry right here in Allegheny East. Now, I kind of want to now transition a little bit to when he became a leader here in Allegheny East. He served in several capacities before becoming president, and served many of our churches. Some of you, I haven't been looking at the chat, but I know some of you have been sharing how he was your pastor here, he was your pastor there. But he served as our executive secretary from 1984 to 1987. And then he became our president. Officially, we refer to in 1989 to 2000. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about that his leadership with AEC, because I hear so much about that. I think I started working AEC many years after he was gone, but I always heard about the Kibble administration. That was kind of like it was like a part of AEC history that. So for those of you, I mean, I know Pat, you came right after. Yeah, but for anybody else experienced the great Kibble? I know Charles.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I have a lot of stories. I can start with one of the unique things that he did as a president. He wanted us all to collaborate on what our mission statement would be and our vision statement. And as opposed to someone sitting down and just writing it out and say, here's our mission statement, here's our vision statement, he involved the entire conference office. And he said, I want you all to give me input on what you think our vision and our mission statement is. And so, just to be able to collaborate with President on that level, I mean, and everybody, including myself, we wrote down the most important things, and together, actually, if you see the vision statement, the mission statement, even on our website, that was a collaboration of the entire conference office. That was just not Elder Kibble. He wanted everybody's flavor of what our mission was, and that's how it ended up being what it was.
Rob, we all knew the mission.
Yeah.
And that was when you didn't just help. You knew
right.
It.
And he was a first-class president. Everything he wanted the conference to do, especially in the office, had to be on a professional level and first class.
I see some comments in the chat I wanted to share. Rodney was saying that he loved having a good time in whatever he did, even in his serious, long discourses.
Right.
That's so true.
And he had some long ones.
Yes.
I think he has the record for the longest prayer.
Right.
Yeah. Someone will remind me of how long it was, but his prayers ended up being not only just a prayer, but an appeal and a mini sermon. And yeah, you just knew you had your head down for a long time.
They say he could collect the offering too.
Oh yeah.
Were they just paying?
No, the offerings at Allegheny's camp meeting were epic.
Yeah, that's what I heard.
They were epic. There were live animals that would be
yes.
Oh yeah, he was
not an exaggeration.
Are you serious?
No.
He was the first president that ever did anything like that. Literally through the pavilion came a guy on a horse and lambs and traipsing through the pavilion. It was quite a sight.
But we got some.
Very dramatic.
And I heard he used to have what they call sacred cows. Is that like?
Well, Pat, I was just getting ready to talk about that.
Okay.
What he would say is there are 3 sacred dates.
Okay.
Yeah,
On the
The Allegheny's conference calendar.
Right.
Spring workers meeting,
Mm-hmm.
camp meeting,
Right.
and fall workers meeting.
Right.
So
Those are
don't
the
plan anything.
3 sacred dates. Don't plan anything around them. Don't plan anything on them.
Don't die on them.
Or you can plan it after, but nothing on or around those dates. And,
That's right.
he was serious
Very.
about that. Just to go back, kind of to piggyback on what Chuck and a little bit of what Keith said. Wow, our workers' meetings now are nothing compared to what they were then.
Okay, tell us about it.
And it's just the gospel truth, what it is. All day sessions, and then he, as Chuck would say, not just a prayer, but he would have a talk about the talk or about the presentation or about the presenter.
Right.
After adding in his own thoughts, his own comments, and his own flavor to whatever was presented for that day. But it was literally a all day session, an all day thing.
You want to hear a funny story? It's an anecdotal story on his lengthy speeches, prayers, service, whatever. He called me from New York. He was up in New York working on a project, and he calls me from New York, and again, I don't often get calls from Elder Kibble, but from time to time. So I get this call out of the blue. It came up on my phone, Alvin Kibble, and I said, "Oh, can't imagine what this is about. So I answer the phone, and he says, Chuck. I said, yes, sir. He said, I think I'm getting better. I said, what? Getting better at what? He says, well, I've been taking lessons and I've been recording myself to not be so long. He says, people criticize that I'm just long-winded. He says, I think I'm doing better. And he says, I've got some recordings I want to share with you. And I want you to tell me what you think. I mean, it was so funny. It was the last thing I was expecting him to say. But he said, I just feel proud of myself. I don't have to talk as long now. I know how to cut it down. I said, oh, okay, Elder, that's wonderful.
He's aware, right? Oh, I see we have another guest that's going to join us. What's up, Rob Patterson?
Robert. Hey.
My people. Good evening.
Wow.
Hey.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you guys.
Where are you?
Thank you for letting me jump on, Pat. I'm currently located on the beautiful island of Bermuda. But I was just all in the comments about you guys talking about the chief. Mm-hmm. He was the president that restored my faith in this thing called denominational work. Mm. So I'm ever indebted to Elder Kibble. That's my guy. I remember Chuck when we had his going away party for AEC down in Maryland, and I was allowed to give remarks on behalf of the Treasury Department. And at that time, Late Night Show was doing the top 10 reasons. So I did the top 10 reasons why Alvin Kibble is always late. Because he was notorious for being late.
Really?
Oh yeah. Yes. But I don't remember all 10 of them, but I know the last one that made it special. He was always late because he was always taking the time to speak with one of the, I believe we had like 30-something thousand members of the Allegheny Conference. Mm-hmm. He gave you his time. It didn't matter who you were, what church you were from, what position you held. If you needed to talk with him, he took the time to talk with you, and he made everybody feel special. Keith, I remember your tribute you wrote on Facebook. That was exactly who he was. Mm-hmm. Our workers' meetings were epic. He introduced us to people, outside of our denomination that was just awesome. Wyatt T. Walker, Kane Hope Felder, Buster Savoy out in New Jersey. We met those type of people at workers' meeting. Alvin Kibble brought them in. So
I heard he was like one of the first to bring in like New Jersey Mass. Camp meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was who he was.
Walker. That was Aunt Jewel.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
I guarantee you Aunt Jewel told him to do that one.
Oh yeah. And he listened to her.
I'm talking about New Jersey Mass.
Yeah.
When you said Rob, I heard you say he listened to her.
Oh yeah, he listened to her. She that's why New Jersey Mass was there. He listened to her. But before y'all kicked me out the studio, I remember camp meeting. He bought all the employees, he bought them hand sanitizer because he told us that this is our campground. It doesn't matter what your assignment is. If you see paper on the ground, you pick up paper. And to this day,
that's right.
Wow.
If I see paper on the ground, I was at the teachers convention in Phoenix. They have their own cleaning crew, but I saw some paper on the ground and I picked up and every time I do that, I always think of Alvin Kibble because he was a servant leader. He was a servant leader, and he modeled it. I remember when Albertina Walker came, the tree was in the way and the band couldn't get through. He jumped out and moved the tree out the way so the band could get through and she could get to the pavilion and perform her thing.
Right.
Wow.
I remember Rob, and I don't know if you were in this particular staff meeting, but it was in a staff meeting, and I don't know, I think the subject was hours, how many hours we work in the office and when we should come to the office. And he made a very stark statement. He said, you may have office hours, but if you work for this church, you are employed 24 hours a day.
Yep.
I mean, you know, he made it clear that you were a denominational employee in the office and out of the office.
Yes.
I heard about those standards, boy. Well, Rob, we thank you. I mean, you're invited to stay, but I know you got, you know, major responsibilities.
It's so good to see you guys. I just feel honored to be on this great platform. You know,
there must be a fountain of youth out there in Bermuda.
Yeah, you look great.
I know they got some clean water.
What? God is kind and He is faithful to His servant. That's all I can say.
Talk back to me if you can.
Talk back to me if you can. Yes, sir. But yeah, I could go on and on about Elder Kibble, because he was a statesman. When he walked in the office building in the little farmhouse, if you were cutting up, you stopped, because he just demanded that respect, you know. But he was a cool dude. I mean, he would let me go play golf with him. We would go eat. But he, you know, you just had that. He just had that kind of awe about him. A statesman, you know. When you were in his presence, you wanted to do right. And
absolutely.
Could he go long? Yes, Lord.
Yeah.
He could talk about any subject forever. Keith, when you preached the sermon, after you finished preaching, he would re-preach your sermon for you. That was him, though. But you just had to sit there and endure it. Yes, sir.
I want to know, Rob, before you go, do you remember workers' meetings? Maybe I shouldn't share the names, but there were guys in workers' meetings. One guy would bring, back when we had broadsheet newspapers. I remember. Like, guys, one guy brought his computer and his printer. Another guy would have tea and honey. I mean, it was like guys were coming to camp.
Yeah.
Because we knew we were going to be in there all day long.
It was going to be all day. It was a journey. It was a journey.
Right.
I mean, we were in there from 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning until 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Really?
9:30, 10 o'clock at night.
That's what I heard.
No exaggeration.
That's no exaggeration. It was.
And you know, I don't know if you guys remember what I felt was one of the best and most fabulous workers meeting is when he took us. I believe it was South Carolina. It used to be the old
Jim and Tammy Baker's place.
Jim and Tammy Baker's place. Yeah, beautiful resort and amusement park or whatever, and we had our workers meeting there. I don't know if you remember that, but it was quite an event.
He took us to some nice spots because he was first class.
Absolutely.
He was
and I believe,
first class.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Rob, I believe that was one of the few workers meetings that included all of the employees.
Teachers went to that one too. Yeah.
Right.
Wow. He was great for taking.
I think there's something to be said about Elder Kibble's style.
Yes.
And I do know that some people felt that he might have spent a lot of money, you know. He flew around, did a lot of things, but what he did strengthened the culture of the conference because it brought us together. It created opportunities for us to create experiences and memories together, whether it's like you mentioned, South Carolina or Virginia or Western Pennsylvania. I mean, it was like these sacred dates, Al, they were events that we look forward to. And so, yes, while on the one hand we were in there till 10 o'clock at night, it was a time for us to bond with each other as pastors. So even after the 10 o'clock, guys are playing rook. You know what I mean? It's like we became knitted to each other during those times, and so I just wanted to tell you the positive side of it.
You remember the camp meeting in Hampton?
Yes.
One GC year we took camp meeting from Pine Forge, and we had it at Hampton University, and that was a big highlight for the company. Yeah.
Wow.
Now, what were some of his popular sayings? Like, did he have like those phrases that he said all the time, or no? He just said a lot.
You're fired, or what?
I was going to say,
I'll come back here.
He in every discourse you would get the history of the Allegheny East Conference. You would get the history of the mission statement and how it came about. You would get the history of excellence.
mm-hmm.
He would. I mean, those were his talking points.
Right. And he was not afraid to say, when he talked about goals,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he would say, you know, these are the goals. I remember one time he put up a graphic of like a football field or something, and he was talking about goals, and we need to be here, we're here, but we need to be up here, so forth and so on. And distinctly, and I'm paraphrasing, he said that if you can't make these goals, he says, you might want to seek some employment somewhere else. And a matter of fact, he says, I'll help you find another job. I mean, he was, on the one hand, you know, people chuckled, but then, you know, you're laughing and you're like, hey, that's not funny, because he's serious.
He had some standards. I mean,
he would say, no, we don't have any stars.
Yes.
Here.
That is one of his phrases.
Yes.
okay.
That's right. That is.
Listen, guys, I got to tell you, I'm at Andrews University, right? And I got Deliverance Choir. Keith, you remember Deliverance? Deliverance Choir.
I do.
And he's coming up to speak at Andrews University for Black History Weekend. And now it's not in the little forum. They allowed it to happen in the church, in PMC Church. So we get to sing at the church, you know, the drums, all that good old fashioned stuff. So when he gets into his altar call, the choir is singing behind him. You see the theology guys line up on the side with their resumes in hand. I take my resume right there on the pulpit and slip it in his Bible.
Oh no, really?
Hey, shoot your shot.
Okay.
Listen.
And the rest is history, right?
And really, I think he was in a transition during that time, and he's the one that gave it over to President Cheatham, and that's how I became Cheatham's first pickup, because he couldn't do it from there, so he gave it to him for me to be there. So it's. I remember he had called Deliverance Choir to camp meeting. And we did a concert there, and a lady got up very angry at the kind of music we were doing, and she just denounced it, like in front of everybody, stopped the music and everything.
Yeah, I was there. I remember.
Yeah, he came in, and he was like, "These are my guests," and gave her the ringer. We walked out, and he said, "Come back in and finish the concert." And I respect him for that. And so I do believe that if I had not, you know, slipped in that resume, or whichever the case may be, I wouldn't be here. And he's always called and encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
Always called and encouraged. Absolutely. And when I say that, I'm saying personally, he's always called and encouraged me. There are times when you just feel like just leaving ministry altogether, and for some reason the call comes in, you know, and he has a way of saying this. And Al, he has said this. I think I shared this with you one time. He said, guys like you, and he mentioned some of us, makes him feel safe to retire. Guys like this. He named a couple of guys. And he said, makes him feel safe to retire out of ministry, that the Adventists belief will not go to naught. We're gonna miss him.
That's who he was. And if I can add to that, after 2019, randomly my phone would ring, and it would be Alvin Kibble just calling, Rob, how you doing? Just checking on you. Making sure you're okay. I'm praying for you and whatnot. And I spoke with him a few months ago, because I used him as a reference for the conference here in Bermuda, and I knew if I put Alvin Kibble's name on the list, it was they couldn't deny Alvin Kibble.
Oh no!
He could talk me up, and that would be great. and I called him and said, Chief, I'm putting your name on my reference list. Is that okay? Man, sure, that is no problem. When they call me, I'll give you the reference that you need. And I was trying to explain to him things that had happened to me, and he was like, Rob, I don't believe nothing, none of that. You're good with me. Keep on pushing, and God's got you. Mm-hmm. That was my guy.
I love it. And we do have, guys, so many people have so many great remembrances of the Kibble. We have another person who's going to join us right from his car. Dr. Harris.
Harris. Good evening, everybody. Good evening.
Marcus Sam Cook Harris. Right. Sing me a line, brother. Sing me a line.
Hey, how you doing, Keith?
Keep us near the cross, Bishop. Keep us near the cross.
Yes, sir. We got to stay. We got to stay.
Yes.
Oh, my.
Well, we're talking about Dr. Harris. We're listening to some of the, experiences, personal experiences some people have had. I understand that you had a special relationship with Elder Kibble as well.
Yeah, it wasn't until I guess God was working things out for me to become a part of the Allegheny East Conference when I knew of him because of our history in Chicago. In fact, we are both a part of the alumni of Shiloh Academy there in Chicago. And on the 100th anniversary, he was the alumni speaker. Coincidentally, now it's 10 years later, and I will be there in 2 years to speak for that alumni weekend. But we shared memories about Shiloh. We talked about the same nooks and crannies. We talked about the same South Side hangouts. Of course, he was my elder brother, and some of the same people. The culture of that church and that school is deep rooted, and so we shared that together. I'd always admired his and benefited from his leadership, his input as a pastor at In Lake Region. That's where I was pastoring, but our personal connect, I guess, came when after stepping away from ministry almost 7 years, on my answering machine one evening was the voice, "Hello, this is Alvin Kibble." And I said, "What is this?" Okay. The backstory was that there was some talk about possibility coming to Allegheny East. I came to Allegheny East, preached, went back home, no contact. We saw each other. It was a camp meeting weekend. It was in fact, it was 2000 when General Conference was going on, so it was abbreviated, and we never talked. I went back home. And I got a call that he was going to be at Lake Regis camp meeting. Go see him. I went to go see him, but he was in one of those extended presentations at the workers meeting and camp meeting. And I had clients because I was working it. Yeah, it was extended, man. This was a long workers meeting for camp meeting on that morning. I said, my God. So I left my card with him and said, would you all let him know I was here, but I got to go. And then that's when the call came, and the call was simply saying, would you be willing to come and interview? I still remember that interview because not only was it the beginning of my journey with Allegheny East, but it was a time of healing for me. The interview for a position was a time that he used in engaging with me to affirm and to reaffirm God's call on my life. When I told him I was out of ministry, and he reframed it by saying, you were in a different ministry. You were still ministering, but in a different arena. And it was, I came, I interviewed with him and Elder Cheatham. Didn't realize that was his transition time. 2000 was the end of his term. And so my time with him as being my president was up until constituency that year. But it's the time that I've had with him since that time. Every transition, every assignment he has called, he has affirmed. We dialogue, we talk. I've got books that he recommended that I should read in preparation for my new assignment. I wear seersucker suits because of Alvin Kibble. No joke. No joke.
You wore one recently, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Well, that's all inspired by Elder Alvin Kibble. So he was that impeccable dresser. Everything about him. He and Bobby Palmer had that same kind of swag and that vibe about them, and the impact on my life. And I just thanked God when I was pastoring Breath of Life. He was a member. In fact, he still, up until his death, was a member of the Breath of Life Church in Fort Washington, Maryland. And during my tenure there, which was almost 12 years, he was engaged and active with the congregation there. I shared in not workers meeting, but our area meeting this past Tuesday, that the last time I saw him was in December at Dr. Harewood's, his organization. They have their Christmas banquet and award ceremony. He was there for an award. It was the last time that I got a chance to see him face to face and to hug him. And you always think back on that. If you knew this was the last time that you would embrace, maybe you would hold on just a little.
I hear
longer.
A song coming, Sam.
But but what I am looking for is that great getting up morning.
Yes, sir.
And we'll be able to, by the grace of God, should I make it, I'll be able to embrace and hug him again. Rob, you were brave. I was warned not to go golfing with him.
I was set up. That was Benny Man set me up. They used to hijack me from the office and take me out on the course.
Absolutely. He was a enthusiast. But I don't know if we ever got a chance to call him a golfer, but he was a golf enthusiast.
I was going to ask that. Okay. I'm sure he provided the entertainment.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
yes,
sharing.
Indeed.
I love hearing all these stories about
So I want to chime in because I'm so inspired by all the comments and experiences that many of you have shared with about Elder Kibble. As a newer pastor in Allegheny East, only been here 4 years, I've only heard of how innovative and legendary he was. And I keep hearing he was the best president Allegheny East has ever had. Can you all tell me why?
Where do we begin? And I don't think it's not a knock on anyone else.
Oh no.
It's just that the organization, the level of professionalism that he brought to the table, you just wanted to be better because of him.
That's right.
He was well read. He was well versed in and out of the church. It was just a great time, and that's just my simple version of it. But he cared about people, yet he demanded a level of excellence from everyone. And because of who he was, you wanted to give that to him.
That's right.
He didn't just talk it, he actually believed it and lived what he did. Yeah. I think I caught a little bit of it. Am I right, Marcus?
Oh yeah.
Yes, absolutely. His idea or his vision for what excellence in ministry was contagious. If you had a heart that said you wanted to be all that God would have you to be, what he poured into us, even as the president and outside of that, he always maintained relationship and connectivity with Allegheny East and its workers and its constituency. So yeah, it was an era that was unlike any other. Like I said, I got it briefly, but even afterwards, his influence was still felt.
I think he also plugged us into our history as a conference.
Very much so. Yeah.
And was always, not just because of what he knew, but because of his own experience, reminded us that we're building on something that people sacrificed for. And I think that was crucially significant as a building block and a foundational stone of his presidency.
And coupled with that, Al, here is one of those legends who shed blood for the African American work. He is one of those who came under the hailstorm of those who were in opposition and opposed some of the benefits that we enjoy right now. And it should not be passed over. He put it on the line. He was courageous. He was bold. We talk about the innovative and being a leader. He was also the leader for the regional conference presidents. And these guys during that time, they were under fire. And he was a hero for the Black work, and as you mentioned it, one of our greatest historians. I mean, I asked him, I said, Alvin, where did you get that? He said, oh, I have a file. I said, can we get it too? Because he had the information. Yes.
Yeah.
I was
one way that he impacted my career directly was when I was hired to be director of media, we had a studio in Philadelphia. It was in the basement of Larcher School. Some of you may remember that. We had a full studio down there, offices and studio control rooms, all of that. And, Elder Cheatham was my mentor there. He was one of the first media pastors, in the North American division. He studied it and all. So, because of certain circumstances, they had to move the media center from Philadelphia to Pine Forge. And so in knowing that you have a lot of equipment and things like that, my question was silently, where are we going to have a studio in Pine Forge? So they put me in cabin 24. That was the media center. And I did my best to make it into something that worked. But because of Alvin Kibble, one day I was looking out the window of my office, which is in one corner of cabin 24. And I saw the maintenance guys out there measuring the ground. So I said, I wonder what they're doing. So I went outside and jokingly said, so what are you guys doing? You're going to build me a media center? And they said, yep. I said, excuse me? I said, it was just a joke. Come on, what are you guys really doing? He says, no, call the office. And I did. And I talked to Elder Cheatham. I said, is it true? Elder Kibble said, yeah. He said, man, you can't do media in a cabin. So we're going to build you a media center. And that's how the media center got on these grounds at Pine Forge. It was
thank you
major for us. And I think we may have had the first media center at least in the regional conferences, a dedicated building for media. And to this day, we're still humming along. And every time I get an opportunity and had an opportunity to thank him for that, I did. And he was just so humble. You know, when you say, Elder, I have you to thank for. And he's like, you know, it's your ministry and it's something we had to do, you know, and he was just so humble about it. But that's the kind of man he was. He felt like, wait, you know, we had a full-blown studio in Philadelphia, and now this guy is working out of a cabin. Not on my watch. And he made it happen. So that's one of my major stories, how he impacted my career.
Gerson, I think one of the things that makes him great for me is, and I don't mean to say this in a bad way, he had a sense of entitlement. Rooted in who he was. I mean, he's son of a church leader. So what it gave him was a sense of, I know the lay of the land. I know how it works, right? And because he was well-read, but at the same time rooted in the history of the church, it gave him a freedom to interact with new ideas in a way that didn't cause him to compromise in any way where he was trying to take us, but he could interact. So Elder Kibble went to Hampton every year, that Hampton Preachers Conference. And he would go every year. And I mean, he would organize all of us who would go down there to go and have a dinner together. I mean, he went every year. What I'm saying is he could go there and not lose his distinctiveness as a Seventh-day Adventist preacher. He could embrace new ideas, but he's like, no, I know I'm Adventist. And so he could interact with ideas and pull us on without causing us to necessarily compromise who we were. And I think that makes him great, because I find that a lot of leaders today, they kind of put their finger to the wind to figure out what is not going to upset too many people.
Wow.
I mean, it was like, if he felt like I need to bring a horse or a sheep in here because I'm trying to do it, you know, I'm going to bring a horse or a sheep in here, or I'm going to bring some Baptist minister to come and share something with my workers meeting. And at the same time, he would tell you, I remember a conversation with him when I was asking him a question. He said, that's not the Adventist way. And, you know, it's like he was very much a Seventh-day Adventist leader, but he didn't put his finger to the wind. He got a vision for where he wanted to go. He was firmly rooted in who he was, knew how this thing worked. And eventually, even when he left, he became a president to presidents. I mean, almost every Black president who came after he left the office came to see Kibble to understand how life is. So he was great.
True. Absolutely. Yeah, he was the one that introduced me to Joel Gregory, to your point, Keith. And once I got connected with Joel, oh my God. But he said, listen, you need to get connected with this guy. And so I know I went one time, I went by myself. Mark McClary was there. And then eventually we were able to do the conference, allowed us to bring him to Allegheny East in the Washington metro area. And we opened it up to anyone else who wanted to come. And Elder Kibble was there in that time together. But he introduced us to Joel, and it's been a benefit ever since.
Wow. Now, guys, I feel like we could go on for a long time, and that's great, because that speaks to the man that he was. We do have, before we close, I know some of you didn't think you were going to be on here this long. We do have one more person who wanted to add something to the conversation. I'm not sure if you, Pastor Reed, are you there? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. I'm out walking my dog right now.
Now, one of the things Elder Kibble used to always, whenever I interviewed him or had a conversation with him, he would always go over AEC's first. He had a list of all the things AEC was the first conference to do. And one of them, I think, applies to you, Pastor Reed. Am I correct?
Yes. Yeah, he was such a blessing to me and my family. It's hard to talk about him right now. I may break down and cry a little bit, but
okay.
Oh.
We understand.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
No problem. No problem. Yeah, just to give the context in terms of the first, Pastor Reed was the first female pastor that was hired for Allegheny's conference.
I think in the whole regional work, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
I
And so
believe.
AEC was the first, and that's one of the things Elder Kibble used to point out. We were
Yeah,
the first. Yeah.
Yeah, I met him at Oakwood, where it used to be called Evangelism Council. And that year I spoke for Evangelism Council. And right after I spoke, he invited me to lunch. But little did I know I was on an interview as they were sitting there talking to me. I just thought I was getting a free lunch and enjoying myself. And then a few weeks later, he invited me to come to Allegheny East, and which was to me a blessing, and because it did open up the opportunity for regional conferences to consider hiring female pastors. And so that has just truly been a blessing. And then when I decided to get married, um, Minnie was telling him, his advisors was telling him, don't hire a um, a couple because it won't work. Where you would have a husband and a wife working in the same conference. And I remember Elder Kibble coming to my house to meet Mondo, and he said, everyone keeps telling me don't do this, don't hire you. He said, but the Lord keeps telling me to hire you. And he said, I'm going to listen to what God tells me to do.
All right.
And that's how Mondo and I, for the almost 11 years that we were married, to be able to pastor together and do ministry together. So he means a lot, or meant a lot to me. Just the support that he gave, and the opportunity to serve under him. I thought he was just an awesome, awesome leader. And just the things that he implemented in the conference, and how he cared about his workers. It just, I'll never forget him. And he just has truly stamped a place in my heart. And I can't wait to see him when Christ comes to take his children.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think she echoes the sentiments of so many others. I mean, I think if we could fill up these boxes with everyone that he's impacted, we wouldn't have enough room for that. But it's so great. I appreciate each and every one of you sharing. Of course, with the stories, we saw a lot of those lines crossing, a lot of the same adjectives used, a lot of the same experiences, which speaks to the man that he was. And I'm glad that we have an opportunity tonight to maybe share with some people who didn't know. They heard about this Elder Kibble who passed away, but they didn't know much about him. But thanks to you all and what you shared, I think they have a better idea. And I do want to close, as I shared when we started. He was my friend on Facebook, and I would often look at the things that he would choose to post. And one of them, which is how we're going to end this, was he posted. He often asked questions on his Facebook page for those who follow. One question was, does anyone remember the gospel song, When Jesus Comes Again for Me, I'll Be Ready? And so he started by listing a stanza that I want to read. It says, I'll be ready. I'll be ready. When Jesus comes again for me, I'll be ready. I'll be waiting and watching when he comes. He will descend on a cloud as he ascended years ago, with glory and splendor and his garments white as snow. With 10,000 shining angels, the dead in Christ shall rise. I must be in that number to meet him in the skies. And he said, I don't remember the rest of the words, but that's what he said. But I thought that was a nice promise for all of us to know that that song was on his heart, enough for him to share. And I think that's what we have to look forward to, seeing him again and the earth made new. But once again, thank you all for sharing your remembrances. Let's continue to keep the family and everyone who's impacted by this loss in our prayers. But once again, thank you everybody for what you shared tonight. It was definitely touching. And I think more people know more about the man, Alvin M. Kibble. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Thank you, everybody.
Good to see everybody.
Yes. And thank
Likewise.
You yes.
Thank you for allowing me to say my piece.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on. Even while walking your dog. We appreciate it. All right, guys. Here we're going to end it here. We thank you all for tuning in to another episode of the UpSet podcast. We'll see you back here next Sunday, because if it's Sunday, guess what, guys?
It's the UpSet podcast.
That's it.
Thank you.
Keep those schools in prayer.
Yes.
Yep.
You keep our school in prayer. Start tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We'll see you next week. Bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye.